To clarify, Liam leaned in, his voice laced with a sense of superiority. We wanted to inform you at this moment to avoid any misunderstandings in the future. All things come to us. My brother's words struck me with the force of a sudden blow, and in that moment, the homemade lasagna on my plate, the very dish Mom had promised to bring me back home, felt heavy and burdensome in my stomach. For a brief moment, the dining room fell into a hush, the only sound being the faint murmur of traffic beyond the suburban cul-de-sac. My heart raced in my ears as I gazed across the gleaming cherrywood table at Liam and Liana, my younger twin siblings. Both wore smirks, their eyes sparkling with a sense of self-satisfaction. "Beg your pardon?" My voice trembled, even though I tried to keep it steady. "What are you referring to when you say everything?" "Precisely what he mentioned, Sarah." Mom interrupted with a cutting remark. Her smile had vanished, supplanted by a resolute line of her lips. "Your father and I have made the decision to finalize our will, and we felt it was important for you to hear it directly from us. The house, the lake cottage, everything, is destined for Liam and Liana." I glanced at Dad, searching for a flicker of doubt, a hint that this might be a cruel joke or a simple misunderstanding. Yet, his eyes remained locked on the silverware before him, completely avoiding mine. The ensuing silence lingered uncomfortably until he finally broke it, his voice soft and meticulously measured. "Sarah, you must grasp our perspective," Dad said, gently clasping his hands together. "You've achieved remarkable success. Your mother and I take great pride in your journey and the achievements you have created. Liam and Liana are still navigating their way forward. They require additional support." I blinked fiercely, battling the intense burn of tears. "Assistance?" For years, I had silently borne the weight of the family's financial responsibilities, convinced it was my obligation as the eldest sibling. Their mortgage, Liam's constant shifts in tuition fees, Liana's caprices and expensive pastimes, all silently supported by me. It seems that none of it mattered at all. A pang of sorrow gripped me as I gazed upon my parents' expressions. Their faces grew stern in my direction. It was a treachery more piercing than I had ever expected. "Is this really what I get after dedicating the last 4 years to paying your mortgage?" I insisted, my tone steady yet resolute, on receiving the tuition bills, the $30,000 I invested in renovating that lake cottage last summer. "You're abandoning me entirely because I achieved something for myself?" My mother let out a deep sigh, her head shaking in disbelief. "This is precisely the reason we chose not to share this with you. You consistently circle back to finances, Sarah. Family seems to take a back seat for you." Warmth flooded my cheeks. My hands tightened into fists beneath the tablecloth. "For me, it has always been about family," I replied. "All the sacrifices I've made stem from my devotion to family." "Since you inquired, Mom." "Family sticks together. You say?" Liam scoffed, leaning back in his chair with a smug cross of his arms. "You're behaving as if you're a martyr. No one compelled you to assist, you simply enjoyed the thrill of being the savior." Liana chuckled softly, twisting a lock of her shiny hair around a finger, her eyes glinting with mirth. "Perhaps you believed that by showering us with money, Mom and Dad would finally show you the same affection they have for us." The harshness of her words pierced through me, tearing open a wound I had long tried to ignore. My parents remained silent, offering no reprimand, and their quietness spoke volumes more than any defense they could have provided. They had consistently pampered Liam and Liana, shielding them and justifying every reckless decision. Yet here I found myself, after years of dedication, being portrayed as avaricious and self-centered. Fury surged within me, incinerating the final remnants of my composure. "You're correct, Liam," I finally replied, striving to keep my voice composed. "I made the choice myself. From this day forward, I refuse to let anyone pressure me into being the financial support for this family. I've reached my limit." I pushed my chair back and stood up suddenly, disregarding the astonished expressions around me. For a moment, the aroma of marinara and roasted garlic hung in the air, a harsh reminder of what I had naively wished would be a warm family gathering. Instead, I found myself caught off guard, shamed, and turned away in the very place I contributed to. As I took my coat from the hallway, the front door slammed shut behind me with a resounding thud, severing my connection to the voices within. Whispers that had lost their significance. The brisk Portland air enveloped me, a refreshing jolt that sharpened my senses, yet my heart remained tender, throbbing with a sense of disbelief. My family had taken advantage of me, cast me aside, and left me with a sense of worthlessness. I slid into my car, the door slamming behind me, my hands gripping the steering wheel as they shook, tears streaming down my cheeks at last. As I navigated the quiet, solitary journey back to my apartment in the heart of the city, a wave of memories surged through my thoughts. Every financial sacrifice, every vacation I had to forego, and all those sleepless nights spent balancing spreadsheets and payments to keep them comfortable. Everything was carried out quietly, without a word of discontent, driven by a distorted sense of affection and duty. How foolish I had been, thinking my contributions were recognized, much less esteemed. Upon returning, my apartment seemed oddly foreign, as if the very essence of my surroundings had been altered by this newfound understanding. I filled my glass with a rich Cabernet, the luxurious bottle I had been reserving for moments that deserved it. In a way, the harsh lesson of tonight felt oddly appropriate. As I sank into the comfort of my couch, I launched my banking app. The monthly payments loomed large on the screen, $1,800 for the parents' mortgage and another $600 for utility bills, a constant reminder of financial obligations that felt almost mocking. With unwavering resolve, I canceled them both, a subtle rebellion stirring within me as the confirmations appeared. As the evening slipped into darkness, I found myself revisiting the dinner conversation repeatedly, my initial anger transforming into profound sadness. The rejection transcended mere financial implications. It struck at the heart, a culmination of years spent feeling like an afterthought, now laid bare for all to see. Yet, even in the midst of pain, something fresh awakened within me, a feeling of freedom, a recognition that my value wasn't determined by their approval. The moment had arrived to take back my existence, liberated from the burdens and demands that had turned into shackles on my soul. I was certain my parents, Liam and Liana, wouldn't allow this to fade away without a fight. There would be discussions, disputes, perhaps even consequences, but tonight signified a pivotal moment. No matter the resistance I faced, I promised myself that I would no longer be their target, no longer silently enduring disrespect masked as obligation. From this point onward, my existence belonged solely to me. As I savored the final drop of wine from my glass, a bittersweet smile crept across my face, lost in the shadows of the night. My family had summoned me home to reveal that they had bequeathed everything to Liam and Liana, yet tonight they bestowed upon me something far more precious: freedom. That night, sleep slipped through my fingers as I lay awake, gazing at the dimly lit ceiling of my apartment. My thoughts whirled in a relentless cycle of disbelief, pain, and fury. The city lights outside danced gently through my curtains, oblivious to the chaos that enveloped me. Each time I shut my eyes, those mortifying instances at the dinner table replayed in my mind. The self-satisfied grin on Liam's face, the disdainful amusement flickering in Liana's gaze, and most painfully, the heavy silence emanating from my parents. Their silence pierced my heart more profoundly than any sharp words from my sibling ever could. As the first light of dawn broke, fatigue had sapped me of any tears left to shed. I pulled myself from the comfort of my bed, prepared a robust cup of coffee, and sat in a daze at my kitchen table. The morning news whispered gently in the background, but I found my mind elsewhere. Instead, memories surged from every corner, unyielding in their vividness. Was I truly oblivious all this time, or had I chosen to overlook the clues, yearning to convince myself that my family cherished me for reasons beyond the financial stability I offered? My phone buzzed unexpectedly, shaking violently against the wooden table. It was my mother. My stomach churned with anxiety, and I chose to let it ring to voicemail, hesitant, or perhaps incapable of facing her voice just yet. A moment later, the voicemail alert flashed with urgency. Despite my reservations, I went ahead and played it. "Sarah, could you please tone down the theatrics?" Her voice resonated, a well-known blend of frustration and remorse. "Please return my call. It's clear that family shouldn't behave this way towards one another." A soundless chuckle slipped from my mouth. How ironic, family, her preferred tool for emotional manipulation. Family seemed to hold significance only when it served their purposes. Forget it. I erased the message and placed the phone down, resolute in my decision to resist her manipulative guilt trips. In the days that followed, the calls began to increase. First mother, then father. At last, Liam and Liana joined the conversation, taking turns with patronizing admonitions and biting appeals. Yet, not a single voice conveyed even the slightest hint of regret, only a growing frustration that their source of income had suddenly disappeared. Ultimately, following a harsh conversation with Liana where she labeled me as selfish and jealous, I decided to block everyone. For the first time in years, a sense of peace enveloped me, delicate and strange. Yet beneath the calm surface lingered a subtle, enduring pain, one I doubted would ever truly disappear. I immersed myself in my tasks to escape reality. The latest endeavor by Bennett Construction, a modern medical office complex in Sacramento, required my complete focus. Meetings, blueprints, client walkthroughs, elements I once navigated with ease now seemed like frantic attempts to evade the truth that awaited me beyond the confines of the office. I lengthened my work hours, took on additional travel opportunities, anything to postpone confronting the void of my suddenly silent evenings. 3 weeks went by with no word from my family. I started with a sense of caution, wishing they had embraced my choice and moved forward, yet beneath the surface, I was aware of the truth. On that Friday afternoon, a message appeared, casting an unsettling glow on my screen. "There's a family gathering this evening, Sarah. Your presence is essential for us." My pulse quickened. I gazed at the message, a tumult of disbelief and indignation swirling within me. I had no obligation to them whatsoever. Not any longer. Yet a sense of wonder, perhaps intertwined with a misplaced yearning for harmony, tugged at my thoughts. Before I could dwell on it too much, my fingers swiftly typed a single-word response. "All right." As I drove into my parents' driveway that evening, a sense of surrealism washed over me. Liam's eye-catching motorcycle and Liana's strikingly blue Kia were already present, parked side by side like twin emblems of privilege. A sense of dread coiled tightly in my stomach as I neared the once familiar front door, now appearing as alien and uninviting as a foe's likeness. Mom opened the door, her strained smile struggling to conceal her annoyance. "Sarah, I'm pleased you chose to come," she said with a rigid demeanor, guiding me into the house I once considered home. "Daisy has arrived as well." Aunt Daisy lingered in the corner of the living room, her gaze filled with a gentle warmth, yet tinged with caution. Her unexpected presence caught me off guard. She seldom engaged in family disputes. I settled into my chair opposite her, my heart pounding as my siblings walked in, their stares sharp and accusatory. Father cleared his throat. "We convened this meeting to address the issues at hand, Sarah," he stated firmly. "Your mother and I had hoped you would come to your senses by this point." Clearly, we were in error. I held back a biting response, my fists tightening in frustration. "Unterstandse rationale?" My voice trembled, despite my attempts to steady it. "You completely removed me from your life after all that I've done for you. With each mortgage payment and every tuition check, you expect me to be reasonable? Cease the embellishments." Mom sighed, exasperation evident as she rolled her eyes. "You contributed certainly, but it was your duty as the eldest. Liam and Liana are entitled to a sense of security. It's not our responsibility that you prioritized work instead of family." A harsh chuckle escaped my mouth. "I opted for my career instead of my family," I said with a hint of disbelief. "I forged my path because you required my financial support. I sacrificed vacations, friendships and relationships, all to uphold this facade of safety." "Oh please, save the theatrics," Liam scoffed. "Your pity charity was never requested by us." Liana lädt out a derisive Lauk. "Perhaps if you weren't so occupied with being the family's hero, you might have carved out your own life by now." Heat surged through my face, a wave of embarrassment rising sharply beneath my skin. Aunt Daisy shifted uneasily, her silence resonating with the weight of unspoken words. My parents stood in silence, their expressions hard, gazes averted from me once more. I rose suddenly, the chair grating loudly against the hardwood floor. "Do you realize something? Indeed, you are correct. I was wrong to think I held any significance in this place. I shall not repeat that error." As I approached the door, my father's voice sliced through the air behind me. "If you choose to leave now, Sarah, don't anticipate a warm return." I hesitated, my fingers clutching the doorknob, a lifetime of repressed fury finally surfacing. "That's acceptable," I responded with a chill in my tone, my voice trembling with restrained anger. "I've always sensed a lack of warmth in this place." Under the chilling expanse of the stars, tears carved fiery paths down my face. With every step toward my car, a weight settled deeper within me, the truth finally dawning. My family has never really appreciated my worth. I felt like I was just a convenience, something that could be easily discarded and swapped out at home. I secured my apartment door with conviction, resolute in my decision to never allow them to inflict pain upon me again. I found myself enveloped in darkness, the stillness oddly soothing, embracing me like a warm, protective cocoon. A soft rap on my door jolted me, a rush of adrenaline surging through my veins. With a sense of trepidation, I glanced through the peephole. Aunt Daisy lingered, concern carved into her features. As I opened the door, I welcomed her inside without a single word. She wrapped her arms around me, a soothing warmth and comfort emanating from her tender embrace. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Daisy murmured, her voice heavy with feeling. "They are mistaken. You are worthy of far greater things." The words shattered a barrier within me, and the tears I had restrained poured out unrestrained. Daisy embraced me firmly, creating a space for me to let go of years of suppressed hurt and resentment. After a prolonged hush, she finally broke the silence, her voice resonating with determination. "They'll never acknowledge it, but deep down, fear grips them. Fearful of relinquishing authority, of confronting their errors." For years, the recurring payments loomed over me, a constant reminder of my obligations. $1,800 allocated for my parents' mortgage, $600 designated for utilities and bills, along with numerous miscellaneous transfers marked as family assistance.
My cursor lingered up over the cancel button, my breathe a quiet whisper, trembling in the stillness.
In the midst of my fury and shame, a deep-seated guilt coiled within me, murmuring familiar tales of duty and accountability. I paused, my mother's words resonating within me. "Family stands united, Sarah, family makes sacrifices." Yet, this evening had peeled back all facades. Their betrayal, cold and indifferent, laid bare the harsh reality. I had turned into nothing more than a mere financial convenience for them. I shut my eyes tight, the image of Liam's mocking smirk cutting through my thoughts, sharpening my resolve with a painful clarity. With a single, resolute click, the mortgage payment disappeared. With another click, the payment for utilities ceased as well. A wave of relief washed over me instantly, a powerful surge that left me gasping for air. After so many years, I found myself free from being their source of support. The shackles had at last been broken. Fatigue finally took hold, and as I stirred on the couch, the first light of dawn had gently transformed Portland's skyline into delicate hues of lavender and gold. The persistent buzz of my phone roused me from sleep, pulling me abruptly into consciousness. A wave of unease surged through me, settling heavily in my gut. It was no shock when my mother's name lit up the screen. I inhaled deeply to compose myself before responding. "Sarah, what have you created?" she insisted, bypassing any pleasantries. Her voice trembled with fury. "The bank reached out. Foreclosure is looming over them. You had no right, no right?" I interjected, my tone unexpectedly steady. "Mom, I took it upon myself to cover your mortgage, but after everything that transpired, I can no longer support you financially." "You're our daughter," she exclaimed. "Respect is something you owe us." "I owe you nothing," I retorted with a biting edge, my anger flaring once more. "Respect is a mutual exchange. Your decision is set, and now I have chosen my path." "Sarah," she started once more, urgency creeping into her voice, but I interrupted her decisively. "I understand that you're feeling upset, Mom, but I can no longer continue with this. Farewell." I ended the call abruptly, my hands shaking with unease. The calls persisted. Every single person, from my father to Liana and even the distant relatives, seemed to engage in a constant effort to manipulate, guilt-trip, or shame me into compliance. In the end, I muted my phone, experiencing a strange sense of strength in this subtle act of defiance. As the days turned into weeks, a sense of equilibrium gradually returned to life. Work transformed from merely a distraction to something truly rewarding once more. I secured the journey to Italy that I had long envisioned, relishing the liberation of finally indulging in my hard-earned money for my own enjoyment. A fresh wave of autonomy washed over my days, yet the solitude would sometimes seep in after dark, a stark reminder of the bonds that had been broken. Next was Sacramento, a 3-day journey to conduct final inspections at our latest medical complex project. The task arrived at just the right moment, offering a refreshing diversion from the shadows of lingering sorrow and familial turmoil. As I made my way back on a late Friday evening, the weight of fatigue bore down on me, my luggage trailing behind as I neared my apartment door. Yet, there was an unsettling feeling in the air. As I approached, the sight became unmistakable, a dense hardened foam grotesquely swelling around my doorframe. My stomach sank. My apartment was entirely locked down, my heart racing. I brushed my fingers against the foam. It was parched and unyielding, deliberately applied to every fissure and nook, guaranteeing my inability to gain access. A wave of panic crashed over me, quickly accompanied by a rising tide of anger. Only one individual surfaced in my thoughts, someone capable of such malicious, trivial undermining. Liam. I quickly called the building management, my frustration evident as I paced back and forth. After what felt like an eternity spent in the hallway, a tired locksmith finally appeared, his head shaking in sympathy at the considerable damage before him. He meticulously carved into the foam, softly commenting on the intentionality behind the defacement. "It was clear that someone was determined to keep you out," he noted with a somber expression. My anger surged at the image of Liam's self-satisfied grin as he slammed my doorway shut, retaliating for my audacity in standing up for myself. As the locksmith completed his task, the clock indicated it was almost midnight. Within me, a surge of energy coursed through my veins, fueled by a simmering rage that made rest impossible. As I settled in front of my computer, the thought of my hallway security camera crossed my mind. With my heart pounding, I accessed the recorded footage, scanning it with urgency until a recognizable figure came into view. There he stood. Liam. With a baseball cap pulled low and a hooded sweatshirt shrouding his features, he remained unmistakably himself. My stomach twisted as I observed him methodically undermine my door, his face a mask of delight and malice. Betrayal cut deeper now, raw and vivid. This was more than mere financial resentment. The act was marked by a deliberate and intimate malice. With trembling hands, I secured the footage, fury transforming into resolve. I paused for a brief moment. This was my sibling. Is it really possible for me to hand him over to the authorities? Yet, this transcended mere family disputes. Liam had ventured beyond the bounds of selfishness into the realm of criminality. I reached out to Aunt Daisy, looking for some advice. "Is that you, Sarah?" Daisy's voice carried a softness, yet it held a resolute strength. "If you fail to hold Liam accountable at this moment, he may never grasp the lesson. Shielding him isn't an act of compassion, it's a form of empowerment." Her insight grounded me. With unwavering determination, I submitted a police report the following morning, presenting the footage as crucial evidence. The fury of my family erupted, a deluge of angry voicemails inundating my phone, labeling me as vindictive, heartless, and a traitor. Yet beneath their fury lay a deep-seated desperation, an abrupt understanding that I was earnest, no longer subject to their whims. Liam confronted significant repercussions, with charges hanging over him unless he fulfilled his obligation for restitution. Dad finally called, his voice trembling with a strained composure. "What would it require, Sarah, for you to reconsider the charges?" I responded without hesitation, $3,000. The precise expense of the repairs. "That's extortion," he exclaimed with indignation. "No," I replied with a chill in my tone, even I was taken aback by the firmness in my voice.
"It's repercussions."
Liam defaced my property, he can either compensate for the damage or confront the legal consequences, it's up to him. He ended the call suddenly. The next morning, a transfer showed up in my account, precisely $3,000, grimly labeled as final payment. Even in the face of their clear disdain, a sense of triumph welled up inside me, not due to the financial gain, but because, for the first time, I had compelled them to recognize that their actions carried weight. Liam's trivial acts of vandalism didn't break me, rather, they solidified my emerging sense of independence. Freed from their self-centered expectations, I started to take back control of my life. Standing solitary in the threshold of my restored apartment, I inhaled deeply, relishing the bittersweet triumph. Indeed, my family had turned against me, caused me pain, and driven me to the edge, yet in their unawareness, they had liberated me. Finally, I could create a life that reflected my own desires, accountable solely to myself. Following Liam's act of vandalism, the silence within my family was overwhelmingly profound. Weeks passed in silence, devoid of angry messages or desperate pleas. Initially, their quietude felt like a welcome reprieve, yet it quickly transformed into an unyielding, heavy reminder of my loss. My parents had taken their positions, and once more, I found myself not being the one they chose. It was then that the whispers began. Aunt Daisy rang me up late one evening, her tone laced with a subtle yet pressing urgency. "Sarah, your mother has been having some conversations. She's spreading the word that you've left them behind, claiming you're attempting to make your parents lose their home." My heart plummeted. "That's absurd," I murmured, clutching my phone more firmly. No options were left for me.
Daisy reassured softly.
However, some do not. They believe you are self-centered, that you cease to assist your family due to avarice. The accusation coiled uncomfortably within me. My parents were reshaping the narrative, casting me as the antagonist, their sacrifice fully realized. The years I spent in silent dedication, the numerous vacations I had to forego, the personal aspirations I set aside, and the dreams I delayed felt as though they were being wiped away, as if they had never held any significance at all. I wandered through my apartment, a storm of emotions swirling within me, as a deep desire to find my voice surged forth. After years of quiet compliance, I was finished allowing others to shape my narrative. With unwavering focus, I positioned myself at my laptop, fingers dancing over the keys as I crafted an intricate post for Facebook. I revealed it all: the monthly mortgage payments, Liam's tuition and his lack of responsibility, Liana's constant demands, and the destruction Liam had inflicted. Each sacrifice, every dollar, and every bit of quiet resentment laid bare on the screen. My hands shook as I hit post, unleashing years of bottled-up pain into the world. In just a matter of moments, responses flooded in, opinions quick and varied. Some reacted with disbelief and compassion, appalled that I had endured such exploitation for an extended period. Some reprimanded me harshly, claiming I was exposing our family's private issues to the public eye. Then arrived the explosive voicemail from Mom. "How could you subject us to such humiliation? Your entitlement is unfounded." Her outrage awakened a deep, instinctual response within me. I shot back angrily, calling her immediately, feeling a surge of indignation. "You deceived everyone. After everything I've sacrificed, you branded me as selfish, a villain, merely to protect your own image? You left us behind," she spat with resentment. "It was solely due to our decision to assist your siblings in their time of need." "No," I corrected, my voice trembling slightly. "You left me the instant you chose to disregard my efforts. You instilled in Liam and Liana a sense of entitlement instead of responsibility, and now you are facing the consequences. You've shattered our family," she murmured icily. "No," I responded gently, "you brought that upon yourself." I ended the call, my heart racing, tears clouding my sight. Guilt coiled inside me, sharp and unyielding. Had I genuinely shattered my family by rejecting their treachery? Was it inappropriate to assert myself, finally insisting on the respect I deserve? A sudden knock pulled me from my swirling thoughts. I opened the door to Aunt Daisy, worry clearly visible on her face. In silence, she embraced me firmly, providing the unwavering support I had yearned for. "Sarah, your post changed everything," she said softly, entering the room. "At last, certain family members are beginning to recognize the reality of the situation. Your mother concealed your efforts all this time, they were completely unaware." I let out a long sigh, a blend of relief and melancholy washing over me. "Is it still significant?" "Indeed," Daisy urged gently, holding my hand with a comforting grip. "Your perspective is important, and you should be acknowledged for your contributions. Your parents made their choices, but you are not bound to follow in their footsteps any longer." Her words struck a chord, sowing seeds of resilience in my weary heart. Gradually, the pain started to diminish, giving way to a tentative optimism.
I had stepped out of the shadows, my voice now ringing clear.
The reality was harsh, unrefined, yet unmistakably my own. A few days later, my phone buzzed out of the blue. A message from Liana, brief and sharp. "Thank you all, it seems we've become quite unpopular.
I trust you feel a sense of pride."
I gazed at her message, a sense of detachment washing over me. I had devoted so much time to seeking validation, yearning for their acknowledgement no matter the sacrifice. Yet now, amidst the remnants of our relationship, I came to understand that their approval was never sincere. It consistently arrived burdened with stipulations, compromises, and hidden ties. I replied with composure, typing with assurance, "I'm finished apologizing for your decisions. Perhaps this is the moment you will truly grasp the essence of responsibility." She didn't respond. As time went on, the critical opinions from far-off relatives slowly diminished. My parents faced financial hardships without my assistance, compelled to take on part-time work and tackle debts they had long overlooked. Liam persisted in his cycle of negligence, shunning responsibility, while Liana floated through her emotions, filled with anger yet hesitant to embrace transformation. In the background, my life unfolded with a gentle grace. At last, my decisions were solely my own. Finally, I found liberation, not only in terms of finances but also in my emotional state. I confronted the harsh reality, weathered the treachery of my family, and emerged intact. Amidst the chaos, I discovered a resilience within me that I had never realized was there. My parents believed that leaving me nothing in their will would break me, but in reality, they had unknowingly bestowed upon me the most profound gift of all, the bravery to prioritize my own choices. Half a year went by, and the burdensome presence of my family finally receded from my daily life. It was quite a challenge. Initially, silence lingered around me like a specter, echoing the memories of every severed link, every fractured relationship. Yet over time, the harsh contours of betrayal dulled, giving way to a more tender essence. A moment of clarity that I had truly liberated myself. I dedicated myself to my profession, achieving a promotion that granted me a corner office and a salary I had previously only imagined. At last, my paycheck was entirely mine. There were no mortgage payments draining my financial stability, no desperate late-night transfers to address Liam's latest emergencies or Liana's spontaneous whims. Every dollar symbolized liberation, a testament that prioritizing my own needs wasn't an act of selfishness, but an essential choice. Embracing my financial independence, I finally secured a 2-week adventure in Italy, a journey I had postponed for far too long due to feelings of guilt about indulging in my own desires. As I stood on a balcony gazing at Florence's radiant skyline at sunset, a deep sense of freedom enveloped me. After a long time, happiness emerged untainted by duties or remorse. Upon returning home, I became part of a hiking group, finally taking back the weekends that had been overshadowed by family tragedy. During one of my hikes, I encountered Alex, whose radiant smile and engaging dialogue provided comfort to my lingering scars. His gentle presence filled the emptiness left by my family, reminding me that I deserved love without conditions. As the months drifted by in tranquility, a chilly November evening arrived, accompanied by an unforeseen knock at the door. I opened the door to discover Aunt Daisy clad in her beloved sweater, cradling 2 steaming cups of coffee. Silently, she entered and enveloped me in a warm embrace. With tears brimming in her eyes, she whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. May you discover every ounce of joy that life has to offer." Daisy finally uttered a few words, her voice gentle and quiet. "Your parents continue to hold you responsible for everything. They will remain the same, Sarah.
And what about you?
You have become more resilient.
You meet your own quase.
That is true courage. They linger in my thoughts." I confessed softly, feelings constricting around my throat. It's not that I regret leaving, it's just painful to realize they never loved me the way I loved them.
Daisy clasped my hand softly.
Sometimes, dear, family transcends mere blood ties. It's about those who truly recognize your value. Her words struck a chord, addressing a void I hadn't known was still there. In the quiet hours of the night, as we exchanged tales and chuckles, a realization dawned upon me. Family transcends mere blood relations, it encompasses those who genuinely cherish and honor you. In the weeks that followed, murmurs from far-off relatives cast a shadow over my situation. Mom was clocking in for the early shift at the diner, fatigue visible on her features, while Dad had taken on a grueling role at the local hardware store, pushing himself well past what was advisable for someone his age. Liam had left his previous job, still evading accountability, while Liana remained trapped in her perpetual dream of starting an Instagram influencer career that was destined to remain unfulfilled. On Christmas Eve, instead of focusing on regret or bitterness, I welcomed close friends to join me in celebrating the bonds of friendship and the spirit of independence. Aunt Daisy joined us, her smile filled with understanding as she observed me welcoming a life I had never imagined I could claim. As darkness enveloped the scene and the last of the guests departed, I found myself standing in solitude, gazing at the city lights that sparkled across Portland. The ache of treachery remained, hovering like a distant memory of a wound. Yet, that pain molded me into a more resilient individual, someone unafraid to acknowledge my own value. My parents attempted to punish me by excluding me from their will, but their betrayal unexpectedly granted me something invaluable, my freedom. Ultimately, the rejection from my parents became my most profound freedom. They bequeathed all their possessions to Liam and Liana, yet they granted me the chance to finally make my own choices. What actions would you have taken if you were in my position? Would you have kept supporting your family, sacrificing your own happiness, or would you have decided to leave, even if it meant losing them for good? I welcome your insights in the comments section below.